you cannot answer this question of the ethics of techniques, if you want, or morality of techniques, without being able to describe and define a selection mechanism which allows you to see if it's good or bad. Before, in the 19th and 20th imaginary of a technique, basically good meant progressive and bad means regressive, so that you could actually order the techniques by this sort of positioning. So the value system was fairly easy if it was modern and modernizing and in the line with the modernizing front, it was good. And when it was not, then it was bad or archaic or has to be transformed or nice to look at but obsolete. But right now it's very different, and the problem that we still have this tasting system which doesn't work anymore, because modernism is no longer the key to decide if this is good or this is bad. Especially in agriculture, it goes all over the board. So we don't have a taste for the definition of techniques going in one direction or the other one. It's very difficult now to decide the direction of any piece of technique. So sometimes there are more general rules, like is it going toward the decarbonization or not, which is called renewable or sustainable or circular. I mean, this is sort of general judgment made on techniques. But this is very rough, because also it's very weak compared to the power of industry or the power of hype. So I think right now we are in a time when the technical, the cultural, what could be called technical culture, the culture of people to taste or test technique is so poor that it's very difficult to answer your question. Is that in most of the time, if you ask people to talk about Molière or painting by Degas, people will have a taste, so to speak. But for technique, there will be just like 5 years old kid impressed by the hype. And that's very problematic, because now we have to shift our whole cultural affect, so to speak, and cultural feel for a very detailed apprehension of techniques. Well, I'm from a school which we call in our little circle actor network theory, where we define society not by linkages which are social, but by linkages which are coming from all sorts of sources. So that social means not a certain type of connector, but the assemblage, the gathering, so to speak, of lots of connectors. So in our theory, law is one, for example. The linkages which are established by law are very durable, even though there is no techniques to hold them. But they compose the association which explain the dynamism, the dynamics of social order, if you want. So is religion, so is art, and technique is just one of them. So, and it's clear that in every single innovation, in every single object that you could see around here, there are enormous amount of legal aspect in the definition of their shape. It's clear from the glass of this window here to every single element, your glasses, shoes, etc. So the legal aspect and the technical aspect and the religious aspect are free of the many ways in which society itself exists. The mistake is to take them as successive layers or separated domain, if you want. So I am from a school which is interested precisely in the heterogeneity and the pluralism of those connectors. So if you follow any innovation, you might have one segment which is due to a legal dimension, because you have a standard to obey. The next segment might come from organizational questions, the way the head of a team behave. The next segment might be a difficulty in the way the atoms are resisting to the trial, so to speak. I as an engineer try to do, etc. So the whole trajectory of a technology would be segmented in our reconstruction of society by those different type of association. And we call society, and sociology for us is not the science of social connection. Society is a study of association. And association is a much larger set. And to come back to your question, the overall dynamic of those associations are not driven by technique in the strict sense of the word. They are driven by technique plus law plus organization plus economic decision plus very often values and cultural patterns, sometimes religion. I mean, it's the set of connection which move in one direction. Well, I will preach for my own parish, which is we should be able to describe techniques in their ecosystems and not isolated in many ways, which means, of course, teaching of engineers. I've been doing this for 25 years in the school of mine, not very far from here. But also technical museums. In general education might be the best answer. But there is also for government a completely different ways, which is to not exactly steer, because techniques are difficult to steer, but at least build an environment which is captured by the notion of alternative techniques, which is quite funny, because in the old days when I was young, alternative technology was for the underdeveloped countries. Developing countries, they were called, India or China and so on. And now alternative technology is a term that qualifies what we should do here, because we have to shift the whole infrastructures of our technique. I mean, not only the carbon economy, but everything else. I mean, agriculture, architecture, transportation, food. I mean, everything has to be transformed. So it's very interesting to see that people are interested now in technique, but they still frame it in the sort of traditional model. When, if we should look somewhere, it's more toward alternative technique. But it's all the thing we try to sold to the poor countries in the past. We should learn it for us now. How do you relearn to build? How do you relearn to transport people? And what is the technical infrastructures which has to be built on this new imperative, which is no longer the hype and modernizing imperative, but which is sort of what I call down to earth imperative.